Loretta West. Welcome to the video, Bead Types Demystified. There's so many kinds of beads out there, and it seems like more are becoming available every day. I hope that this video is helpful in explaining some of them to you. Beads are the medium of our art, and the more we understand it, I think the better artists that we are. If you enjoy this video, there are 3 others in the series. Bead Finishes and Colors Demystified, Bead Tools Demystified, and Jewelry Findings for Beaders Demystified. I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. Most beads are measured in millimeters, 2, 3, 4, etc. Seed beads are the exception. They are measured by the number of beads per inch. And this is the reason that the sizing of seed beads is so counterintuitive. Because it takes more beads for small beads to reach an inch, there are more of them in an inch. Therefore, the number for the small beads is larger. For instance, there are 15 15-ohs per inch. There are 11 11-ohs per inch. 8 8-ohs per inch, and 6 6-ohs per inch. So the larger the bead, the smaller the number, because there are fewer per inch. 15-ohs, being the smallest, have the largest number because it takes more of them to make an inch worth. Let me show you how this works. You don't measure the beads this way to see how many per inch. You actually measure them as if you were beading. So if they were sewn like this is how you measure the number per inch. Let me get my ruler here and I'll show you. Okay, there you go. Almost exactly 6 beads for 1 inch. Now this is not strictly true all the time any longer. Because there are different manufacturers for beads, they don't make them all exactly the same size. You can look at an 8-oh for 2 different manufacturers and they may be slightly different. That's why it's important to always use the same bead from the same manufacturer for an entire project, because an 11-oh from one manufacturer may be slightly different from another. And it's also why 11 11-ohs from one manufacturer may not be exactly an inch. It's all in the modern manufacturing. But that's how we got the names for seed beads, our measuring system for seed beads originally. There are 2 main places where seed beads are manufactured: in Japan and in the Czech Republic. Where they are manufactured can make a real difference in the beads that you get. Beads that come from the Czech Republic tend to be more irregular in shape. For instance, take a look at these. If I pick up a random selection of beads, this one's rather fat but narrow. This one is very wide, and this one is very skinny. You see that? They're quite irregular. And that's a characteristic of Czech beads. It doesn't make them worse, it just makes them different. These kinds of beads are very good for using in things that are where precision isn't important, something that you want to look that's organic or bohemian or just less structured. Japanese seed beads, on average, are much more regular. Here are some Japanese seed beads. Let me put them randomly on my pin, and you can see they're very close in size. So these are good beads to use when you need uniformity in a project, such as if you're doing herringbone or peyote, where you need them all to be pretty much the same. So 2 different kinds of beads, but very different in their appearance, in their regularity. They also come in different ways. The Czech beads come in hanks, which are long strands of beads, usually about 20-inch strands, and in a hank there are 12 of these strands. The Japanese beads come in tubes or plastic packages. So that's another easy way to tell which you're getting. You can walk into a store and be able to tell where a bead was manufactured just by looking for those two differences. Now you will find some Japanese beads that are more irregular. Also, you're starting to see more beads from China. And those can be a mixed bag too as to whether they're regular or irregular. But this is kind of the general rule that your check beads are more irregular. They come in a hank. Chinese or Japanese beads are more regular and they come in tubes or packages. Here are some basic types of seed beads. On the end, we have what you probably think of as regular seed beads. These are technically called rocailles, and they have rounded edges and either round or square holes, usually round though. So here's a view of one looking down and from the side. They vary by manufacturer on just how round this appearance is. Some are a little more squared off than others. Next to it, we have cylinder beads, and the major brands for cylinder beads are Delicas, but there are also Treasures and a new one that I believe is pronounced Acos. They look about the same on top, except if you'll notice they have a much larger hole than the regular round bead, but they have a cylindrical shape. I've heard it described as looking like a tin can, and that's pretty accurate. Next to that, and I'm sorry, I only have a very small bead example of this, are hex beads. And these are, actually have 6 sides. So they are cut on each side rather than being round so that they have 6 sides. It's not unusual. Hex is not unusual. They're also what are called cut beads, which have different numbers of facets. Charlottes have 1 facet, meaning that they are round like this one is, but one side has a cut in it, so it's faceted. Charlottes are most often available in size 13, 13-aught, but you can also get 11s and 15s, but those are harder to find. Any other size other than a 13 technically is called a true cut. Not as common, those aren't, but you will probably hear of them, so that's what they are. Next to that, we have 2 examples of bugle beads. As you can see, bugle beads come in different lengths, and this is a straight bugle bead, and this is a twisted bugle bead. Next to that, another common bead are cube beads. So this is longwise, and this is looking down on the top. Again, you see that quite a bit, and they are just what they sound like. They're cubes. Next to that, we have triangles. These, I believe, are 4 millimeter. This is the side. This is looking down on them. So they're triangular shaped, but have a round hole. These are nice for, they kind of, when you make something kind of nest together and makes kind of an interesting look. Let me give you some examples now of where you might see different kinds of beads. This earring uses Delica beads, which are that very regular and cylindrical shape, and so they nest together very nicely. So you'll see them often in peyote stitch, which is what this is, peyote in the round. Here's another example of an earring which uses peyote stitch in the round, and it is also used to make what this is called a bezel around a stone. And again, very nice because the Delicas are cylindrical and locked together very nicely, and so there's very little space between them because of their shape. And so they're often used with peyote, often used in bezels such as this. Here's another earring that uses a regular small seed bead in here. And you see here the rounded shape of the seed bead actually is part of the look of this earring. So different beads have different uses because we're looking for different effects. Here's an example of a bracelet. Let's see if I can get that out a little bit so you can see it better. That uses triangle beads. And so these triangle beads give an interesting texture and look to the bracelet. And they are interspaced actually with the cube beads. And so that again provides part of the interesting texture of the bracelet. Next, let's talk about crystals. Crystals are basically glass that has been faceted so that it has a lot of shine. They are often transparent, but I also have a couple examples of opaque crystals. The Czech Republic manufactures a lot of crystals, and our best known manufacturer. Probably the most famous company, the one you'll most likely have heard of before, is Swarovski. There are a number of other manufacturers in the Czech Republic. The one that comes to mind is Preciosa. Lately I've been seeing a lot of crystals coming out of China. Those are the usually less expensive ones. So let's take a look at what the different kinds are. The three most common kinds, the first one is bicone. That's what this is. So it's literally a bi-cone, two cones. The next is the rondelle. I'm going to put it on my skewer here so you can see. It is basically a flattened circle. Next to that, we have the round crystal. This one is sort of semi-matte, so you can kind of see the facets pretty well on this one. This happens to be a fire polish stone, and they are often round. Now let's look at some examples of different shapes. They come in many, many different shapes. I'm going to move out here just a little bit. Most of the ones that I have are sort of teardrop shape, top drilled, so they are kind of meant to dangle. This is a kind of pointed one, a wide one. This one's going to drive my camera crazy. It has a checkerboard design on it. There when the light goes crazy, you can kind of see that a little bit. And then this last one is another teardrop, and this one is also opaque. All right, in addition to that, those all have holes in them. In addition to that, there are ones that do not have holes. This is a Rivoli, and if I can hold it on its side here, you can see it's got a coating on the back and then it's clear on the front, and it's pointed on both sides. It's a Rivoli. I only have a small one of the next example, but I hope it'll be easy enough to see. This is, I believe it's pronounced a Chanton, and it is similar in that it's got a pointed back with a coating, but the front, instead of having a point, it's got a cut there, so it's flat on the very tip. So this is a Rivoli, and then it's held in place by seed beads. So that is the bezel. Here's another example. There's the front. This one is a Chanton, so it's flat on top, and you can see that in the reflection. And the one down below here is a Rivoli. It's pointed. And then this is the back. So those are crystals. The next group I'm going to talk about in glass seed beads are lampwork, which is an interesting word in and of itself. Back up a little bit here. These are blown glass. They come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes and colors. I'll give you just a few more examples. Sometimes they have things inside them like this one. Here's one that's kind of a teardrop shaped. Here's an oval one. This one has something kind of milky glass applied on the outside. Just a few examples. There's just an amazing variation in what you'll see. So that is lampwork. And then just a couple examples of one other type. This is pressed glass. These both happen to be leaves. And these are actually made by putting glass into a mold. And you can see the mold has these, the impression of the veins in the leaf. So that is pressed glass. Next, we're going to talk about the wonderful world of shaped beads. These are glass beads. Some have one hole, some have multiple holes, and it is just a burgeoning area. It seems like there are new beads coming out almost every day. There are many I don't have, but there are quite a few that I do, so I'm going to walk you through it and we'll explore together the world of shaped beads. So among the one-hole beads, the first thing I want to talk about are the elongated drop beads. There are quite a few here that I have. This is your basic drop bead. The one next to it is called an elongated drop bead. This is a Rizzo. It's shaped rather like a grain of rice. You'll notice all these have holes on the end, so that's why they are drop beads. Next to that is a pip bead, which is wider and a little larger. Next to that is a dragon scale bead. These are smaller and shaped very much like scales. If you laid a lot of them out on a piece, that's kind of what it would look like you have. Next to that is a mushroom bead. It's kind of a drop bead on steroids, big sort of chubby bead. Then in addition to that, there are all kinds of dagger beads, which are even longer, much longer than these are, and are really popular right now. Next, I want to show you a megatama bead. These are cut kind of like a parallelogram. The hole, I'm going to turn it around here, goes like this, and so these lay on an item like this and kind of have some movement, kind of like the drop beads do. In fact, I can show you a piece that has some megatamas and some drop beads on them. Here's a bracelet. I'm going to pull back a little bit. This bracelet has running down the middle of it megatama beads, and you can see they're kind of loose. And then it also has the little drop beads on them. So you can see how those look when they're on a piece. Moving on, the next thing I want to talk about are O beads. These are quite simple little beads. They're just little O's, look a little bit like a washer, come in many different colors though. And there's a new bead that's a little bit similar to this. It's called a one bead. They're larger, have a larger hole and are a little bit oval, but the same sort of idea. Now this is a peanut bead, and this is a berry bead. They're quite similar. They have, let's see if I can get a little closer, they are quite small. To me, they both look like they're sort of shaped like a peanut. They have a bit of a waist, but narrow in the middle, you can see that. One hole right in the middle, and then they're a little larger on the ends. So that's a peanut and a berry bead. Here we have examples of some different tile beads or square or rectangle. These are our two-hole beads. The first one on the left is a tilla bead. The holes go lengthwise like this. See if I can get one spear one. There we go. Then there's one on the other side. There are also half tillas, which are the same, just half the size, and the holes go this way. This is a pyramid bead. The holes also go this way through it. It's a bit larger. There's another bead that I don't have here that is made by another manufacturer that is a check tile, and it's similar to the tilla. It's a little bit fatter, taller, however you want to put it, a little bit more rounded corners. This is a rula, and it looks a bit like a squared off Tootsie Roll. Also 2 holes, as you can see. This is a brick. It has the sides, the holes going this way. This is a bar, the holes, 2 holes going down, and this is a 4-hole quadratile with the holes on the top rather than as they are on the tilla going this way. Let me give you a couple examples. There are just incredible numbers of things you can do with these beads. I'm going to show you just 2 examples. Here we have a necklace, which is made with half tillas. Very simple, but sort of emulates what a silver chain might look like. Fancy silver chain, just made with half tillas and 15-0 seed beads. And then an example of a necklace made with bar beads. Well, I'll show you here's the necklace. Here's a component that has bars in it. Bars, that would be this one right here. In fact, it's the same color and everything. This necklace actually has quite a few shaped beads in it, but these are the bar beads, and as you see, you just see their profile when they're in a necklace. I only have a couple of examples of round 2-holed beads. There aren't as many of them. On the left are 2-holed and 4-holed lentils. And then here are 2 beads that are actually proprietary beads of the Potomac Bead Company. This is called a disc duo, and if I hold it up here just right, you can see that there are 2 holes that go through it. This is called a round duo, and there are its 2 holes. They also have something called a round trio. I haven't tried those. Those have 3 holes going through them. Let me give you at least one example of something that I've actually already shown you. Move this up a bit. This necklace has both disc duos and round duos in it. Here are the round duos, and then the purple are the disc duos. Here are a few more that don't have much in common, but they're just kind of odds and ends that I wanted to show you. This is on the end here is called a pinch bead, and it's kind of an elongated triangular shape. If I put it on end here, you can sort of see the triangle. This is a half moon bead. I don't have an example of this, but there are also crescent beads, which are very popular right now, which are very similar, but they have a bit of a cutout here. And then this is a triangular bead, and there are actually several different kinds of triangle beads. There's a tango, an Emma, I believe it's pronounced, E-M-M-A. And there's also a one-hole triangle bead where the hole goes right down the middle. This is another kind. It's a Cheops, and I'm not sure about this pronunciation, but I believe it's Parpuka or Parpuka. And this one, the holes go through it like this. Each of these is different. The Tango and the Emma both have the holes going in different directions. I believe the Emma is the one that has the holes going down. So it just depends on what you want. There's a bead for everything. Next, I'm going to talk about twin beads. These are all super duo beads. There is another twin bead that's called twin bead. It's similar. I do not have any of them, but they're very similar, but they do not have as much, my understanding, they do not have quite as much of an hourglass figure as the super duos do. You notice how much wider the super duo is in the middle. That's kind of what enables them to sort of nest with each other. So this is a super duo. This is the one next to it is a mini duo. Same idea, just a little smaller. And then this is a super uno. The difference between a super duo and a super uno, as you might guess, is that the super uno just has a hole on one end. So the other end is without a hole. I'm going to give you a couple examples of what some things with super duos might look like. Here is an earring made with the mini duos. They're a little smaller, so it's a little easier to make an earring with it. You can see, especially on the inside here, in the first inner row, and get it to focus that small, how they kind of can nest together, and then the second row kind of fits right in between. Here's another example, also made with mini duos, where they've been used to make a bezel. Very popular, lots and lots of things that you can do with super duos and other twin beads. There are some other beads that are somewhat similar that I don't have examples of. The infinity beads and the super eights. The shape's a little different, but it's along the same sort of line. Leaving glass behind, there are other substances that can and very often are used in beading. This is an example, these two examples are pearls. This is a freshwater pearl on my left here. And on the right is actually a glass pearl. Swarovski makes a lot of glass pearls, and that's what this is. This is quite a large one. They're great for earrings and focal points. I don't have any actual pearls, but I'm sure you know what those look like. And then I'd also like to talk about stone, certainly gemstones, which I don't have examples of, but there are lots of other kinds of stone that are used in beading, and here I've got a few for you to look at. There are many more. Inexpensive stone can be used in many ways. This is, I know the names of a few of these. This is calcite, and this is hematite. Let's see, this one is slate over here. This one is howlite, which can be dyed and often is dyed to resemble lots of different, more expensive stone. This down here is actually cat's eye. I have another example of cat's eye over here somewhere, if I could find it. Oh, there we go. There's a natural cat's eye. In addition to these, there are other types of beads, including wood, porcelain, acrylic, bone, metal, shell. These are just some of the more common kinds. The last category I'm going to talk about today is strictly not a bead, but are used by beaders quite a bit, so I'm going to include it. And this is cabochons. Cabochons don't have holes in them. They can be made of most any material. This one is porcelain, this is cat's eye, stone, most anything. This one over here is glass. They can be made from most anything, and they are attached to beadwork by a bezel or in bead embroidery. They are sewn on, glued on, and then have beads sewn around them. They're very versatile, and they're used quite frequently by beaders, and it's a word that you'll probably encounter. So that's a cabochon.